Hey guys, today I'm reacting to Geography Now Malaysia. So I got recommended this and looks pretty interesting. I mean, Barb's is a pretty interesting host and Geography Now is entertaining. So let's give it a watch. Hopefully we can learn something new about Malaysia.
Well, here we go. Ever since I made the Indonesia episode, you have no idea how many Malaysians were like,
Okay, now that you did our cousins episode, do not mess with ours.
oh, don't worry.
Oh yeah. The Malays. I mean, yeah, the Malays from Indonesia, from Singapore, from Malaysia, of course. Yeah, it's like the same family.
Malaysia, and here to reassure you, I made you some nasi goreng.
It's time to learn geography.
Now! Hey everybody, I'm your host Barbs. How refreshing! We are back in Southeast Asia, and today, after Brunei, East Timor, Indonesia, we are doing the last country in the Nusantara
Nasi goreng is pretty tasty though.
Archipelago, Malaysia. Ahem. Oh, sorry, didn't see you there, Singapore. You're so small. So what do the Malays
Oh yeah, okay. So, I say nasi goreng is pretty tasty, but I don't think I've tried true nasi goreng. I definitely want to try that in the future. Just saying.
bring to the table that the others don't? Well, let's
let's
find
go
out.
back a bit.
Nusantara Archipelago, Malaysia. Ahem. Oh, sorry, didn't see you there, Singapore. You're so small. So what do the Malaysians bring to the table that the others don't? Well, let's find out in the first segment. Cue transition. Now this is going to be really fun because Malaysia's land has so many unique twists and turns, and explaining it's kind of like doing a Rubik's Cube blindfolded. Right, Ken?
Right, totally.
Yeah. You got it?
I don't know, did I?
Damn.
First of all, Malaysia is located in Southeast Asia, divided into two main parts. Peninsular Malaysia, where about 40% of land, which also has the southernmost tip of mainland Asia, Tanjung Piai, while East Malaysia, or Malaysian Borneo, takes about 60% of the country's land on the island of Borneo, making it one of the only two islands shared by three nations along with Cyprus. If you want to be technical, Cyprus kind of has four, including the UN buffer zone, but you get the point. Just watch the Cyprus episode. Keep in mind, about 80% of the population lives on the peninsula, while only about 20% live on Malaysian Borneo.
Yeah, I've heard that most of the population live there.
In addition, the country has over 870 islands off its
Damn.
shores, the state of Sabah having the most with nearly 400, the largest one being Bangi Island. However, the island of Sebatik is a little bigger, but the island is split in half with Indonesia in the south. Also, they have a little bit of a dispute with the Philippines in the east. The country is divided into 13 states and 3 federal territories, Putrajaya Labuan, with the capital Kuala Lumpur. However, due to overcrowding, almost all the government ministries and administrative offices were moved to Putrajaya in 1999. After Kuala Lumpur, the next largest cities are Georgetown on Penang Island and Ipoh. The busiest airports are Kuala Lumpur International, Kota Kinabalu, and Penang Internationals. Now here's the thing, Malaysia lies under the South China Sea. If you don't know anything about this place, and if you didn't watch the Brunei episode, it basically goes like this. Basically, every country in this area wants a piece of these things called the Spratly Islands. Today, Malaysia has claim to about 11 of them, and the most notable one being Layang, which they built an airbase on. Now, you might notice that it's interesting how these two small entities, Singapore and Brunei, got mixed up into this whole region. Well,
Oh yeah, Brunei.
when it came to Brunei, it kind of went down like this.
Welcome to the Malaysia Agreement. Sultans, please sign the paper saying you'd like to be part of Malaysia.
Wait, I'd have to give up that? And I'd have to lose control of what? Oh, hell no! As for Singapore, it was more like,
Hey Malaysia, you just got free from British rule. Let's join up.
Make sense? Yeah, we are now one country.
Yeah.
You have too many Chinese people, and you're gonna waste my money!
Yeah, well you only get privileges to the Malays!
You know what? You're out of the club.
Yeah, fine, whatever. I quit. One day, you know what? I'm gonna make something of myself!
Okay!
and boy howdy did they keep
That is kind of how I see it, from a foreigner's perspective, but yeah, that seems about right to me.
that promise. Otherwise, some notable places of interest might include places like the largest roundabout in the world, the Petronas Towers, the tallest twin buildings in the world, Kuala Lumpur Tower, the Batu Caves with a Hindu shrine, the National Monument of Malaysia, Legoland Malaysia.
Although there are a lot of Chinese Malaysians.
Yep, they have one. Sunway Lagoon, the National Mosque of Malaysia, Kek Lok Si Buddhist Temple,
Huh, nice. That's a cool temple.
these palaces, the old Dutch buildings of Malacca, the
Ooh, those look pretty cool. And this tower right over here looks pretty
Leaning
epic.
Tower of Taluk Intan, A Famosa Fortress, the cat statue of Kuching, this heritage museum, Sarawak cultural villages, and the Sepilak Orangutan Rehabilitation Center. Yep,
Interesting.
orangutans, they have plenty of those in here, which means we can now swing over to the next segment, the...
Nice.
When it comes to Malaysia's land, they got kind of lucky because not only is it like rich and beautiful, but unlike their neighbors, you don't really have to deal with any crazy catastrophes. First of all, Malaysia rests.
That's good. I mean, that region sometimes volcanoes, earthquakes, etc. So, but the weather. And the climate itself is just
comfortably on the bottom of the Eurasian plate, literally shielded on all sides, mostly by Indonesia and the Philippines. This means that if any earthquakes occur, Indonesia usually absorbs all of it. If cyclones and tropical storms attack, the Philippines and Indonesia take the hit. And if a volcano erupts, they don't have to worry because they don't really have any volcanoes, and it's probably happening in Indonesia.
Damn.
Thanks, Indonesia.
Now, when it comes to nature, even though the largest lake, the Kinyer Reservoir, lies on the west peninsular Malaysia side, the eastern Malaysia Borneo side has all the extremes. They have the highest mountain, Mount Kinabalu, the longest river, the Rajang, and a lot more animals. In fact, Malaysia is one of the most biodiverse countries in the world. They have 14,500 species of flowering plants and trees, over 600 bird species, over 200 species of mammals. Speaking of which, peninsular Malaysia is home to the most black panthers in the world. Insert Wakanda joke, I don't have time. Speaking of that, the national animal is the Malaysian tiger, which is also featured on the coat of arms, which we will cover in Flag Friday. Stay tuned. Otherwise,
that is cool. I mean, I like tigers more than lions.
They have
and I just find them cool.
Elephants, rhinos, orangutans, and they even have their own version of tapirs like the ones in South America. Wow.
But aren't the elephants smaller there?
And that creepy-looking proboscis monkey. Many of these species you can find
that monkey, bro. That monkey.
In one of the oldest rainforests in the world, over 3 times older than the Amazon, Taman Negara.
Oh,
Malaysia is.
Oh yeah, Southeast Asia has a lot of rainforest. It used to be that whole area used to be so much more covered in rainforest, but nowadays it's kind of been deforested due to palm oil and such. You know, it's unfortunate.
It's also a land of caves. In fact, they have the largest chamber in the world that can be found in Sarawak. Otherwise, Malaysia is known for producing electronics, palm oil, petroleum, gas, and rubber. They're actually the second largest palm oil producer in the world and the largest condom maker. Just saying.
I think Indonesia's the first largest producer of palm oil.
They even have their own national car company, Proton, making Malaysia the 11th country in the world with the capability to fully design and engineer and manufacture cars. Otherwise, some national dishes might include things like nasi kandar, nasi dadang, nasi kerabu, chicken percik, mangosteen and durian are treasured fruits, and the national dish, nasi lemak. Oh, and if you have the chance, see if you can witness the famous tarik tea shows. The servers pour out tea, sometimes over 1 meter in length. It's almost seen as like an art form. Okay,
yeah,
I think that's just about
you
it.
You can see that in other countries as well, but that's pretty
now,
cool.
In this segment, let's talk about the coolest part of Malaysia, the Malaysians. Just for the record, the word Malay refers to the races that make up Malaysia.
Yes, that's what I was thinking too. Malay is like the Malaysian ethnicity, sort of. So
Malayan is the geographic term for peoples of West Malaysia on the peninsula and not part of Borneo, and Malaysian is the nationality and citizenship. So a Malay person in Singapore is Malay, but not Malaysian. And a citizen of Indian descent living in Kuala Lumpur would be a Malaysian and Malayan, but not Malay. Got it? Probably not. First of all, the country has about 32 million people and is one of the fastest growing nations in Asia. The country is made up of 67% Malay or Bumiputra indigenous Malay peoples. We'll talk more about that in a bit. About a quarter of the population is Chinese, about 7% are Indians, and the rest are other groups mixed in, including a few other Asian groups and Europeans. They use the
pretty diverse.
Malaysian ringgit as their currency. They use the type G and M plug outlets, and they drive on the left side of the road. Now, here's the thing. Let's talk politics. No, we're
yeah.
not getting into an ideological debate. We're just going to explain the system in which Malaysia's government operates.
Proceed.
Malaysia is one of the few monarchies in the world. However, it's not a monarchy in the conventional sense because they kind of have 9 kings-ish. These 9 states each have a royal leader known as a sultan, and every 5 years they rotate to allow one of the 9 sultans to rule as head king, known as the Yang Di Pertuan Agong.
That's interesting as hell. That's very interesting.
That means that technically, if you were a boy and your dad just finished being king for his 5-year term, you could be the next one, but you would have to wait at least 40 years for it to happen. You know, since 8 other kings would have to be king before you. Yeah, I know, it's like, oh, what the? There's a lot more that goes into it, but that's kind of like the basic underline. They are the only country that does this. I mean,
in practicality, though, this seems inefficient and kind of useless. Hopefully, it's just like a formality, though, and like, hopefully they don't actually have real power. I'm hoping they don't.
Closest thing would be maybe the Comoros with that rotating president thing, but it's nowhere near as complex as this. Nonetheless, the royals are held under a constitution that limits their power mostly to cultural
Good.
and religious
Good.
affairs, as well as appointing certain leaders and so on. Most of the government
Appointing certain leaders, though, I don't know, but I'm not as informed on the topic. But at least their power is limited.
activity is held and controlled by the Prime Minister and the Parliament. Which brings us to the most recent controversy, the 2018 election. This effectively changed everything, as for the first time since 1957, the BN party was voted out and the new PKR party took over. And it was actually a peaceful transition. We really
Hallelujah, peaceful transitions.
I don't have a lot of time to talk about it, but it's really interesting to look into and talk to a Malaysian person if you want to know more about it. It was like a huge deal for
Maybe tell me about it in the comments below. Maybe inform me a bit about it.
the country. Anyway, the country has two official recognized languages, Malay and English. They were once a British territory, so it kind of makes sense. It's taught from elementary school. Malay is basically intelligible to Indonesian. Both countries can generally understand each other. I explained this a bit in the
That's cool.
Indonesia episode. For Malay, the words are easy to read, but the problem is the intonation. For example, the word for slowly, I believe, is perlahan, not perlahan. It's like you have to know how these things work. Nonetheless, about half of the population is mostly fluent in 3 languages, adding their mother tongue, especially if they're part of the Chinese and Indian minority groups. And they are allowed to take vernacular schools that teach in these languages, just like Singapore. Which brings to culture. In Malaysia, the population is quite diverse. You have a lot of Chinese, known as the Peranakan Chinese, that have existed there since
Oh, he's gonna explain it.
the 15th century. They have a unique Chinese Malay culture with a touch of European influence. The Indian community is mostly Tamil and Telugu speaking South Dravidian Indian groups that were brought over during the British colonial years. Then of course you have the largest people group, the ethnic Malays or the Bumiputra, as well as the Orang Asal, whom are like the really indigenous ethnic Malays that make up the majority of the population in East Malaysia on Borneo.
That's cool.
Sometimes these two people groups are collectively joined together under the term Malay, although some might disagree. But either way, these
I mean, there's sort of a lot of Malay people in Southeast Asia. They're the original people. Well, I guess sort of. I mean, you can also kind of classify it. Another way you could say Malay people are part of the Austronesian race, or Austronesian. Yeah. So Austronesian is like this. I guess a race would be a race or ethnicity that came from Taiwan originally, and they spread all over Southeast Asia. Yeah. So they're not exactly Mongoloid, like they're not like East Asian exactly. They're a little bit different. But yeah, they do come from Taiwan, so that's pretty interesting. And the race is Austronesian, it's like in the Philippines. Taiwan's original inhabitants are Austronesian. Malay people, of course, are Austronesian from Malaysia. Indonesia. Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty cool. And also Hawaiian people, New Zealand people, yeah, etc. They're all Austronesian. Anyway.
These two groups kind of steer the direction in terms of what constitutes Malay culture. Oh, and don't even get started on the Bajau people that live on these structures in the middle of the ocean for most
Oh, I've heard of them. I don't know their name, but I've seen some documentaries on this.
their lives, and they've adapted to hold their breath for like 15 minutes underwater. Yeah, those
really
people are cool. Another thing I really want to highlight is that sometimes Indonesians do kind of accuse Malaysians of stealing their culture because a lot of Malaysians are descended from Sumatra. Faith-wise, Malaysia is also quite diverse. Although the country's official religion is Islam, it's a multi-confessional nation. Buddhists are mostly from the Chinese community.
I mean, the Malays used to actually be, Buddhist and Hindu before, so that was pretty interesting. And there's still some places that are Hindu, I think, and there are some probably places that are also Buddhist still. So I think that's pretty interesting. Like Bali, for example, I think is still Hindu. That's pretty epic.
Hindus for the Indians, Christians from all races, numerous temples, mosques, and shrines and churches are found all over. Malay culture is defined by a
At least the temples and old buildings are still taken care of. That's
number
good.
of aspects. For one, the clothing. Remember a couple months ago that guy from Malaysia, Kamarul, sent me the Malay hat, the Tengkolok? So I forgot to bring this on set when we were filming, but I still have the hat and I love it, and I told you I would wear it in the episode. So here I am. I'm wearing it in the Malaysia episode. Thank you so much, man. I asked some of you guys, the Malaysian geographies, what you would like me to highlight in terms of Malay culture, and some things you said included things like the performing arts such as joget dancing and makyong theater, traditional shadow puppetry, silat
that's
martial
cool.
arts, songket
That's
weaving,
I've heard of Silat. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but I've heard of it. It's pretty
The
cool.
traditional steep roof and sharp buttress architecture, gamelan music. Speaking of which, history time. We don't have enough time to go too far into it, but in the quickest way I can put it, Hindu kingdoms, Buddhist kingdoms, Islamic Sultanate, Portuguese came in,
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Dutch came in, British came in and made the White Raja period, which made things interesting. World War II, Japanese came in, British came in again, independence. Okay, very quickly, just to cut, this is the part where I totally forgot to mention all the cool stuff that happened in the 60s. It's how they got those 2 states in Borneo. We'll explain more on Flag/Fan Friday, so stay tuned. Economic restructuring and industry boom, 2018 vote for the new prime minister, and here we are today. All right, some notable people that you guys, the Malaysian geography, suggested that I should mention in this video might include people like Siti Nurhaliza, Lat, the cartoonist, Sheikh Muzaffar Shukor, P. Ramli, Ziavi, Hang Tua, Enrique of Malacca, Michelle Yeoh, Tony Fernandez, Air Asia owner, designer Jimmy Choo, Melinda Louie, singer Yuna, director James Wan, Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, Nicole Ann David, Lee Chong Wei, Henry Golding, and the first
Oh, Henry Golding. I think he's like half Malaysian.
Prime Minister, Tunku Abdul Rahman. I'm sure there's way more famous people I could have mentioned, but we gotta move on. Time to go to the last part of this episode, Now, Malaysia is quite the powerhouse player when it comes to Southeast
This should
Asia.
be
They got a
interesting.
good thing going on and they host great parties. Outside of Asia, the EU has good relations, making Malaysia one of the top 3 trading partners of Southeast Asia, and specifically Austria loves exchanging electronics and pharmaceuticals with them. Of course, the UK is still pretty close as a former
I'd imagine their closest friends would be all the ASEAN partners, and probably Indonesia, maybe Singapore, and then all the ASEAN partners,
colony. Much of the cultural residue is still evident to this day. They are one of the Commonwealth of Nations. Many Malaysians live in the UK, and
Or ASEAN. ASEAN or ASEAN. ASEAN partners would probably be the best friends of Malaysia.
most of the white population in Malaysia are of British descent. As a
Makes
member of
sense.
the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, of course, they
Yeah.
have close ties to their neighbors. Cambodians
Makes sense.
love Malaysia and visit often, whereas Malaysia is one of the closest and biggest investors of Cambodia. Thailand has a few
Cambodia.
issues, since there are those Malay Patani separatists in the south that keep protesting, whereas the Philippines is like, we're really similar ethnically, but you're mostly Muslim and I'm mostly Catholic, but whatever, we both like coffee and fried chicken. When it comes to their best
cool.
friends, however, most Malaysians I've talked to have said Indonesia and Singapore. Singapore may have left the Malaysian Union, but they still kept close ties as a sovereign state. They are quite cooperative in business and even culturally, they are very similar, with noticeable Chinese and Indian minority enclaves. Indonesia is like the big brother that has a very different political system, but in the end, they cannot deny how alike they are. The biggest difference would be that most Indonesians have a Javanese background, whereas the Malaysians are just Malay, mostly Sumatran, but they talk the same, they eat the same, they enjoy the same hot, humid atmosphere, and they have close relations altogether. In conclusion, with sultans, kings, tigers, panthers, temples, shrines, mosques, and really cool hats, it's no wonder why Malaysia is becoming a hot spot that everyone's talking about today. Stay tuned, the Maldives is coming up next.
That was pretty epic. I'm just sad I couldn't add much to the video because I was a bit uninformed on the topic. Found it super interesting and fascinating. Yeah, let's watch Flag/Fan Friday now.
Flag/Fan Friday. Hope you liked the Malaysia episode. Now, as you know, this is the part where I usually kind of talk about and discuss the things that didn't quite make it into the video. One of the things I really wanted to talk about, but we just didn't have time, was the 1963 Malaysia Agreement. In the simplest way I can put it, Indonesia was against the states of Sarawak and Sabah becoming a part of Malaysia. So for about 3 years, they had a little bit of a war/skirmish against each other, and in the end, Malaysia held their ground and they held on to Sarawak and Sabah. And that's why today Borneo looks like this, split up between 3 nations. So crazy. It's like one island, but like everybody wants a piece of it. And I don't blame them. That island is pretty cool. They have like flying snakes and all these weird
Yeah.
animals on it. There's probably a lot of other things I could have said, but there's just time. Yeah, let's jump into it. The flag. So without further ado, Malaysia. I remember that time I crossed the bridge from Singapore into Johor.
Oh yeah, Johor Bahru, I think.
I actually had nasi malak for the first time from a street vendor. I didn't even know what half this stuff was. I just dumped like everything on my plate. I'm gonna be a little honest. Some of it didn't digest very well, but I liked it anyway. Worth it! Anyway, the flag. Let's jump in. The flag is a striped banner with 14 alternating red and white stripes, much like that of the USA, with a blue canton in the upper left, bearing a yellow crescent.
I've heard Malaysia has cheap and good food, but for example, like Singapore has expensive, but probably safer to eat food.
and 14-pointed star. The stripes and points on the star both represent the unity between the 13 states, and the 14th one representing the federal territories. The crescent symbolizes the state's official religion, Islam, while the blue represents the unity of the Malaysian people, and the yellow represents the color of the royal rulers of Malaysia. Fun side note, the 14th stripe and the 14th point on the star used to stand for Singapore, but then after they left, they made it stand for the federal territories, because Singapore, it wasn't working out. In addition, before the Sarawak and Sabah thing happened, they used an 11-pointed star after independence, and prior to that, of course, they were under the British. Each state had their own crown colony flag. Prior to that, they were under the British Straits Settlement, whereas the Borneo side was under the Kingdom of Sarawak. Interesting. Anyway, the coat of arms. The coat of arms contains a shield with lots of symbols
It is a pretty cool coat of arms.
on it. On top of it are the 5 krisis, or the traditional daggers representing the former Malay states of Johor, Terengganu, Kelantan, Kedah, and Perlis. Totally butchered those pronunciations, I'm sorry. Under it, on the left, there's the Pindang palm with the Penang bridge representing Penang, whereas the colors in the middle stand for the Federated States. The 3 sections at the bottom represent the 2 states of Sarawak and Sabah, with the national flower, the hibiscus. And on the right side,
Hibiscus, that's pretty cool.
the Malacca tree representing Malacca. On the sides, the shield is supported by tigers, the national animal, symbolizing strength and courage. The crest on top of everything is a yellow crescent and star, just like the ones on the flag with the same meanings. And finally, the motto at the bottom banner reading, Persekutu Bertamba Mutu, which means unity is strength. Keep in mind, of course, over the years, the coat of arms has changed quite a few times. Things got a little tricky when Singapore joined, but then left. Sarawak had to change their flag because it was too similar to
The Czech flag.
the one of the Czech Republic, Czechia. But overall, the format of the tigers and the shield has stuck. And that is just about it. You know what time it is? It's time for Geograph Fan Mail time.
Alright, that was pretty epic. Definitely enjoyed that. Malaysia's super interesting. And if you want to provide me anything you think was missed or something I would find interesting, tell me down in the comments below. Provide your thoughts on the video as a whole, and provide more recommendations for videos I should react to. What else to say? It helps below if you comment, because it helps with the algorithm if you comment. If you enjoyed my reaction, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.